What is my name? I don't even know. No one bothered to record it. No one noticed me. No one cared about my pain. For 12 long years, I lived in constant pain, feeling invisible, unworthy, completely cut off from life, from family, from hope. No one would touch me. No one would speak to me. And then, one desperate decision changed everything. What happened next will shock you. Stay tuned. This is the Epic Christian channel. Before I begin, remember to subscribe, like the video, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss any of our deep Bible stories. Today, I step into one of the most powerful encounters of Jesus' ministry, a story of suffering, faith, and miraculous healing. My suffering echoes louder than many stories with names, though my name was never mentioned in Scripture. I am a woman the world forgot, but God remembered. 12 years before Jesus passed through my town, I was a completely different person. Strong, joyful, full of dreams. My laughter filled rooms. My hands were quick with work. My heart was full of hope. The kind of hope every young woman in Israel carried. A husband someday, a home of my own, children running around my feet, a future blessed by God. But pain often enters quietly. At first, it was a few days of unusual bleeding. Then the few days became weeks. And the weeks became something terrifying, something that broke the rhythm of my life completely. The blood wouldn't stop. I told no one at first. I believed it would pass. I whispered to myself, maybe tomorrow. But tomorrow never came, and slowly, a shadow from the Old Testament law rose to swallow my entire world. According to the law of Moses, a woman's monthly cycle made her ceremonially unclean. Not sinful, but separated. 7 days away from others, 7 days away from worship, 7 days where everything I touched became unclean, too. But for me, the cycle never ended. The 7 days became 12 years. My separation became permanent. And with that came a harsh, unspoken truth. I could never marry. Marriage wasn't just companionship. It was identity, security, legacy, a shared covenant, a future. But the law was clear. No man could touch a woman in my condition without becoming unclean until evening. No man could lie with me without falling under days of purification. What man would choose a wife he could never touch? What man would embrace a marriage where every act of closeness made him an outcast? I watched girls my age walk down aisles with veils of white linen. I watched brides laughing behind henna-painted hands. I watched new mothers cradle their babies with eyes full of wonder. But my own womb was a battlefield. A place meant to carry life, carrying only pain. I stopped dreaming of wedding songs. I stopped imagining the weight of a newborn in my arms. I stopped hoping for a husband's embrace. Because in my world, those dreams had become forbidden territory. It wasn't just my health that was stolen, it was my future. And the community responded exactly as the law taught them to respond. People stepped away when I passed. Mothers pulled their children closer. Neighbors avoided sitting where I sat. Friends visited less and less, then not at all. At first, there were gentle whispers. She's going through something. She just needs time. But sympathy has an expiration date. After months, after years, the tone changed. Stay away from her. She brings uncleanness. God must be displeased with her. Something is wrong with that woman. They stopped using my name. Now I was simply the unclean woman. Imagine carrying that label every day, waking up to it, sleeping under it, breathing inside it. I felt trapped inside a prison made not of stone but of my own blood. Every sunrise mocked me with reminders of what I had lost. Every sunset was another day of unanswered prayers. I lived my life on the margins, watching others live the life I wanted, from a distance I did not choose. The loneliness was louder than the pain, because pain you can endure. Pain you can grit your teeth through. But loneliness? Loneliness eats your soul slowly. There were nights I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of my own heartbeat. Weak, tired, fading. Nights I pressed my hands against my stomach, begging my body to stop betraying me. Nights I cried quietly into my pillow because no one could hold me. No one could comfort me. No one could even sit beside me without becoming defiled. I was a prisoner in my own home, in my own body, in my own destiny. 12 years. 12 long years of being the woman no one touched, the woman no one married, the woman no one hugged, the woman no one sat beside, the woman no one wanted to be near. My life became a slow, silent funeral while I was still alive. And yet, something inside me refused to die. A spark, a whisper, a tiny flicker of hope that somehow my story wasn't finished. I didn't know it yet, but the God who wrote the laws that had isolated me was about to write a miracle that would restore me. I reached for a small clay jar of crushed herbs, once recommended by a physician who swore it would help. It didn't. Another physician had tried heated stones. Another insisted I drink a bitter tonic. Another charged a fee before even examining me. I suffered many things from many physicians, and I had treatments that left me exhausted, remedies that weakened me more, false promises, financial ruin, disappointment after disappointment. Everything I owned, every coin, every saved cloth, every piece of jewelry inherited from my mother, had been sold to pay for cures that never cured, treatments that made me worse. My hands trembled as I set the jar down. My body was drained, my spirit even more so. Outside, life moved on without me. I could hear children laughing in the street. I could hear women drawing water from the well. I could hear the morning market coming alive with voices and energy. I hadn't been part of that world in 12 years. People weren't cruel, but they were careful. I understood the law. I didn't blame them. But understanding didn't make the loneliness hurt any less. Sometimes I lowered my head and whispered to God in the quietest voice, "Will this be my life forever?" I didn't ask for wealth. I didn't ask for comfort. I didn't even ask for marriage or children anymore. Those dreams had quietly slipped away in year 3, year 5, year 7. I simply asked for freedom. Freedom to touch and be touched. Freedom to worship again. Freedom to walk without shame following me like a shadow. But heaven seemed silent. I sank onto my small mat, pressing my palms to my face. The room spun slightly. I was too weak again. I had been too weak for years. Tears rose, uninvited and unstoppable. God, I don't know how much longer I can do this, I whispered. Not accusing, not angry, just tired. Deeply, profoundly tired.
Outside my door, footsteps passed. A woman's voice carried through the air. "Did you hear? Jesus is passing through today." The name drifted in like a spark falling on dry wood. Jesus. I had heard whispers about him. Whispers of miracles. Whispers of healing. Whispers of power flowing through him like no one Israel had ever seen. I lifted my head. My tears slowed. My breathing shifted. For the first time in a long time, something flickered inside me. Not joy, not strength, not excitement. Hope. Small, fragile, but alive. The name lingered in the air long after the passerby disappeared down the street. Jesus. I repeated it silently, tasting the weight of it, the possibility wrapped inside it. I had heard him spoken of in the marketplace, how lepers were cleansed, how the blind saw, how demons fled at his command. Stories I never fully believed, not because I doubted God, but because I doubted my place in his story. Miracles were for other people, people who were clean, people who belonged. But something about this man was different. Rumors traveled fast, but testimonies, real trembling testimonies, traveled even faster. There had been too many to ignore. Still, what was I thinking? I stood, wavering on my feet as a wave of weakness washed through my body. It reminded me of the truth I hated most. I barely had strength to walk. I started asking myself questions. How could I push through a crowd? I clutched the wall to steady myself as another thought hit me. If anyone recognized me in the crowd, if anyone realized I was unclean, I could be driven away, shouted at, humiliated. I could even be punished for putting others at risk. It wasn't just embarrassing, it was dangerous. My hands trembled at the thought. The law was clear. My presence in a dense crowd could make dozens unclean in a single moment. Going out there wasn't simply bold, it was forbidden. For a moment, my heart sank, and hopelessness tried to claw its way back. The safe thing to do was stay inside, hide like I had been hiding for 12 years, whisper prayers and hope heaven heard them. But then, another voice rose inside me. A voice I didn't recognize at first. It was gentle, firm, persistent. If you do nothing, nothing will change. I moved toward the door, slowly, almost reverently. My fingers brushed against the old wooden frame, familiar, worn, safe. Beyond it lay danger, judgment, and exposure. But beyond it also lay my only chance. I wrapped my cloak tightly, drawing the veil over my face. I couldn't afford to be recognized. My steps were unsteady, but determination carried me forward. The street outside was brighter than I remembered. No longer a silent observer, I stepped into the world I hadn't been part of for 12 long years. Dust rose beneath my sandals with every step, steps I never imagined taking again. My pulse quickened as I heard voices coming from the main road. He's here! He's coming this way! Jesus of Nazareth! Crowds. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. My heart slammed in my chest. This was my fear. This was my obstacle. And this was my moment.
I pulled my cloak tighter and slipped into the moving mass of bodies. Every bump, every shoulder brushing mine felt like a stolen breath. Anyone who touched me unknowingly became unclean, but I could not turn back now, not when my miracle might be just a few steps away. As the crowd thickened, I whispered to myself the words that steadied my trembling soul. If I can just touch the hem of his garment, just the hem, I will be healed. That single sentence was the thread holding my world together. Not if he sees me, not if he speaks to me, not if he calls me by name, no. My faith required only a touch, the smallest contact with the edge of his robe. That was all I needed, all I believed, all I dared to ask for. And with that whisper sealing my determination, I pressed deeper into the crowd, toward the moment that would change history. But I kept going. Every step was an act of rebellion against the life that tried to erase me. Every heartbeat was a declaration. I refused to die in this condition. I refused to be forgotten. I refused to be defined by my sickness. I slipped into the crowd, careful to avoid brushing against others, but it was impossible. People were everywhere, pressing forward, pushing, pulling, reaching for Jesus. Someone elbowed me in the ribs. Another person shoved me through the crowd. Voices hissed angrily when I stumbled against them. "Watch where you're going! Move! What's wrong with you?" My vision blurred. My legs wobbled. A wave of dizziness swept through me. But ahead, just ahead, I saw him. Jesus, walking with purpose, yet so gentle. Eyes so full of compassion even from a distance. A presence that stilled the chaos around him. I gasped. I had never seen such pure kindness on a man's face. "Now," I whispered. "It's now or never."
Summoning every ounce of strength left in my dying body, I pressed forward. Past the pain, past the fear, past the shouts. I stretched out my trembling hand. Just one touch. My fingers brushed the hem of Jesus' garment. Not his hand, not his arm, not his shoulder, just the hem, dusty, frayed, swinging with his movement. But the moment I touched it, heaven touched me back. A surge of warmth ignited inside me. Electric, powerful, alive. The bleeding stopped immediately. The pain vanished. My strength returned. My mind cleared. My heartbeat steadied.
I inhaled sharply, my first full breath in years. Tears filled my eyes. My knees weakened under the shock. My hand covered my mouth to muffle a sob. I was healed, completely, instantly, miraculously. But before I could slip away quietly, Jesus stopped walking. He turned around. Who touched me? The disciples stared at him, confused. Master, everyone is touching you. No, Jesus interrupted softly. Someone touched me with intention. I felt power leave me. The crowd fell silent. Fear wrapped around me like a net. I wanted to disappear into the ground. Jesus looked around, searching, not with anger, but with love so deep it could break mountains. I knew I couldn't hide. Slowly, trembling violently, I stepped forward. My knees buckled, my breath shook like dried leaves in the wind. I fell at his feet, the safest place I had ever been. In front of everyone, I confessed with tears streaming down my cheeks. It was me. I touched you. I had been bleeding for 12 years. I wasn't supposed to come near anyone. But I believed if I could just touch the hem of your garment, I would be healed. The crowd gasped. Some stepped back. Others murmured angrily. But Jesus, he knelt beside me. He lifted my chin gently, the way a father lifts a child ashamed to look up. He wiped my tears with his thumb, and then he spoke a word I hadn't heard in years. Daughter. Not woman, not unclean, not outcast, not forgotten. Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. Be healed of your affliction. My heart broke. Not from pain, but from finally being seen, finally being loved, finally being restored, finally being called daughter. In that moment, the shame I carried for 12 years fell off me like broken chines. I walked home differently that day, not hiding, not trembling, not shrinking. I walked slowly, savoring every breath. I watched the sunlight dance on the dust. I touched the leaves of olive trees. I felt the breeze on my face, something I hadn't appreciated in years. Neighbors stared, some confused, some skeptical, some shocked. But I didn't care, because for the first time in 12 years, I was clean. I was whole. I was free. And now I had a story that would travel through centuries. A story of a woman with no name, yet a miracle that would be remembered by billions. A story proving that you can be rejected and still be chosen.
Can be broken and still be seen. You can be ashamed and still be called daughter. You can be at the end and still be met by Jesus. My suffering didn't silence me. My healing made me a legend. And my story still whispers today. Just one touch can change everything. If you've ever felt too messed up, too far gone, or too broken, my story proves the opposite. Jesus steps closer to people who feel unworthy, unseen, or ashamed. He isn't afraid of your issues, he heals them. You don't need giant faith, you just need honest faith. Maybe you can't pray long prayers, maybe you don't have everything figured out, but if you can still reach, even with trembling hands and shaky hope, God can work with that. My miracle started with a small, desperate reach, not a big religious performance. Your breaking point might be your breakthrough point. Life hits hard. Bills, sickness, rejection, heartbreak. He didn't just heal my body, he restored my soul. He gave me back my life. So if you're watching this today feeling invisible, unworthy, or forgotten, listen to me. If He could see me, someone the world ignored, then He sees you too. Your name may not be written in Scripture, but it is written on His heart. This is my story. This is my miracle. And your miracle may be closer than you think. And if you're listening to me now, let me leave you with this. Have you ever felt invisible, like no one sees your pain? Have you ever been one decision away from giving up? If you were in my place, would you have had the courage to push through the crowd? And tell me, what was your own touching the garment moment? That step of faith that changed your life? If this story blessed you, declare it in the comments. I touched Jesus' garment and I'm holding on in faith. You're watching The Epic Christian, where every Bible story comes alive with power, faith, and hope. Before you go, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe for more life-changing Bible stories. Your engagement helps this message reach more people, and together we can spread the gospel one story at a time.